Hi guys, today we're going to talk about the distributive property with algebraic terms. So do you remember what the distributive property was? We learned it before, and it looked a little something like this. If we had something here multiplied to whatever's inside this parentheses, we have a choice. One is we could just add these terms first and then multiply that sum by a, but what we could also do is distribute it. And to do that multiplication twice, once to each term inside the parentheses, and get a times b plus a times c. So, for example, if we had 2 times 1 plus 6, for example, then we could just choose to do kind of the normal order of operations way and add this first, and then do that multiplication. But the distributive property tells us that this is the same thing as doing 2 times 1, that's this part, plus 2 times 6. If we try that out, we notice that both ways we still get 14. Today, we're doing a little bit of a new twist, and we're using this with algebraic terms. So when we talk about algebraic terms, usually we're referring to things where there's a variable, not just numbers. For example, we might have a problem like this. So the reason why the distributive property is useful is because if we're just looking at this example, well, even if we want to just follow the normal order of operations, we don't really know how to do x minus 3. We don't know what x minus 3 is. So the distributive property allows us to do a little bit of simplification, and it allows us to kind of get closer to evaluating this. We know that this is going to be equal to 2 times x minus 2 times 3, or 6. Notice that we started with a subtraction sign inside of our parentheses before, and I still have a subtraction sign here. So if we think about it, this was a negative 3 before, so when I multiply it by 2, it still is important to be negative. We want to really make sure that we have those negative signs. What about if the thing on the outside had been negative? So for example, what if I did negative 2 times x times 3 plus 3? Well, now again, the thing that I'm distributing is negative 2. So I'm going to make sure that I don't lose track of that minus sign. Again, I'm just going to do this times the first part. Negative 2 times x is negative 2x plus, because this was an addition sign, negative 2 times 3. That would be a negative 6. In this case, I needed to make sure that I multiplied each of these by that negative 2. So my answer became negative 2x plus a negative 6, or if we wanted to rewrite it, negative 2x minus 6. What do you think you would do if you had an algebraic term on the outside? So you could have algebraic terms on the outside and the inside of the parentheses. Well, hopefully you're thinking that it's not really going to change that much. We still have x, that's the thing that we're distributing. It doesn't matter what it was on the outside. You're still just going to multiply it by all of the parts that are on the inside of the parentheses. So here we would have x times x, which we can just write as x squared, minus, because we started with subtraction, x times 3. If you remember from our lessons on like terms, these are not like terms because exponents matter when we're thinking about like terms and unlike terms. And so I can't combine these any further. This is as far as I could go. So that's basically it for today's lesson. We can do a couple more examples just to make sure that we've got it. So I would suggest that you might pause and try to work these out on your own and then double check to see if you got the same answer as me. So for example, if we had x times x minus y, what would you do? You'd be distributing this x, so we're going to multiply each term inside the parentheses by x. That would give us x times x, or just x squared here, minus, make sure you have the minus sign, x times y. And x times y is just xy. There's nothing more we can do there. How about this one? This one, we're going to have to figure out the distributive property and then also make sure that we are combining like terms. These parts don't really have anything to do with the distributive property, so I'm going to just set those aside for now, and I'm going to focus on this part. Here, I know that I can apply the distributive property. The thing that I'm distributing is this minus 3. What's minus 3 times x? Minus 3x. What's minus 3 times 2? That would be a negative 6. So we can either write this plus minus 6, or we could have written it as subtracting 6. These parts I'm just going to rewrite so that I stay organized. Now we can think about our like terms. Do you see any terms that are alike? Do you see any other x squared terms? No. So that's the only one of those. Here we have a term with an x in it, x to the first power. There is another type of that. So here we have 2x, positive 2x, but then we're taking away 3x. So 2x minus 3x is going to give us negative 1x at the end of the day. Here, I just have a term with negative 6. So I'm going to put it down there. Does that make sense? Since there's a little extra time, go ahead and look at the lesson practice for page 660 and see if you could do a couple more of those.